Good morning, everyone. Hello, welcome to the beautiful green Amazon. I'm going to ask you to gather around the old campfire here as we get started for a really amazing day with the Hedera Regenerative Finance Forum. If you've got some coffee or you need some coffee, grab that real quick, and we're going to just settle in for some conversation. My name is Ann Stolniker, and I'm very happy to see you here. We are at the Hub Culture Climate Campus, Belém. This is probably the 60th hub that we've created. They've happened all over the world, going back 20 years. But this is kind of special because the very first hub actually happened on the beach in Ipanema in Rio, almost exactly 20 years ago, 1 month from now in December. So we're celebrating our 20th anniversary of physical hubs with this hub, and it's kind of an amazing moment for us. Thank you. It's a little bit different. That first one was essentially some pillows and plants and a tent on the beach. So I think we've come a little ways, but that's really due to the help and support of so many partners from all around the world. Hedera has been our main partner in the COP process for the last 4 years. We began with our outside bed in Sharm el-Sheikh at an amazing location that we renovated and opened for COP in Egypt. And then we went to Dubai together, where we opened the Future Mobility Hub, which is still there in Uptown Dubai with DMCC. And then last year we were in Baku together, really amazing stuff. And I'd love to just take a minute to tell you about the incredible work that Hub Culture and Hedera have done around ESG reporting. So 2 years ago at COP in Dubai, we announced our new ESG reporting feature that allows anyone who opens a hub to launch a governance mechanism for ESG reporting. It's free and it's open source, and it allows every hub to calculate the carbon emissions related to thousands of different components tied to a project. And so this is, I believe, the first event-oriented emissions reporting for scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. It also covers built environment, transportation, construction, and many other components. So if any of you are looking for ways to be able to calculate your carbon emissions and then post them to The Guardian, you can actually do that with us in a free of charge format. And it's also available via API that lets you be able to move that data in different ways inside and outside of our own community. Today, we're very happy to announce that we've created with Hedera a new SDK. For any of you who are technical, it's a PHP SDK, and it's the first PHP SDK for emissions reporting onto Hedera's Guardian system. Most of these things are done with JavaScript and other technologies. PHP is how we're built in terms of our social network. So this creates new layers of capability between the wider Web 2 world and Guardian's Web 3 world. So you can go to developers.hubculture.com to access that SDK. And if you're smart and technical, you can also look in GitHub and be able to access these open source technologies. So this is a really great example of kind of things that happen below the hood. You know, we're up at the surface of the ocean right here with this beautiful space here in Belém and the opportunity to bring all of you guys together to work on the transformation that's needed. But underneath, there are real strong technical advancements that are happening. And we're going to learn a lot more about all of that today. Can you please join me in a big round of welcome for our host today, Wes Geisenberger from Hedera. He's going to introduce.
And I just want to give a big shout out to Stan and the staff, Elcio and team. This space has evolved to be a really awesome home for folks away from the Blue Zone at COP. And as you're here today, please make yourself at home. If there's anything that you need, please find me, find Stan, Elcio, food, drinks, or even just a meeting space, let us know. This is really a privilege to be able to host this every year for the last 4 years. And our goal in creating these spaces is building that oasis where folks can come, have important meetings, have conversations that matter to them and where they're looking to be over the coming years. We try to build a space where we can have a conversation around technology and the intersection of how we can change the world for the better, specifically focused around climate. And that evolves over time. This year, there's a lot more talk about implementation and finance. In past years, there's been different talks about carbon that are really important. We plan to have all those discussions today and encourage you to find folks here that are going to be your partners in helping drive that change. One of the things we talked about the other night, and we had a cocktail here, was what are the dreams that we want to create? The dreams for now, the dreams for a year from now, and how can we be a part of that? And so the Dream Your Dreams theme, comes from the mind of Stan and all the great things, that he dreamed up to make this a great space and a home for you all and the future. And I want Stan to speak a little bit about what went into that, some of the folks who have helped, even down to where the food comes from. I think that's a good place to start. And then we can jump back into some of the themes of the day.
Yeah, so it is actually really amazing. My first visit to Belém was a year ago in December when we began looking for a location for a hub. And some of our friends from the World Climate Foundation and other groups who are in the climate community were the first people to host me. And we found this square, and we started thinking about the idea of expanding from the climate pavilion to a more ecosystem approach of a climate campus. And today that's represented by the square, which is Praça Frei Brandão outside. And there are 4 locations that are interwoven together that are all connected. So this is what we call the Hub Floresta, and it's our main location with Hedera. Next door is Casa Voz de Oceanos, which is the Voice of the Oceans with David Sherman's group. They are one of the leaders on the ocean conversation in Brazil. They spent the last 25 years sailing around the world and visiting locations on their sailboat and having a TV show here in Brazil that many Brazilians actually know and love. And so that's really the home of ocean conversations that's happening. And then next door is really the best restaurant in, I would say, almost all of Brazil, but certainly in Belém, which is Celeste, and that's our friend Esther Whale. I met her last year in December and loved her food, and so we brought her to the hub in Davos, and she brought an Amazonian flavor from Belém into Davos. I'd see Natalie nodding over there. You tasted that food. And so Esther has been really amazing with her team and her friends helping us find this location and then renovate it. This is actually the Clube do Remo, which is the rowing club. This building was built in 1905 and has been the home of the northern Brazilian Amazonian rowing team. And so it was really a workout location. And we installed a bunch of things with our construction team, like air conditioning to make it a little less warm, and many renovations to the building to get it ready for all of you this week. Also on the square is the Casa Dourada, which is done with the World Climate Foundation in Pasica. This is more focused on social impact innovation. We encourage you to stop by. And then there are 2 churches on the square that are also hosting conversations during the course of the week. So you really have these 4 or 5 locations, and then it's capped at the edge by the new Italian pavilion, which appeared at the Venice Biennale, and then was brought over as a gift to the city of Belém from the Italian government. So it's really the kind of center of the action for the kind of community-oriented climate ecosystem. I think if Esther is here, we give her a little wave. There's Esther. Amazing flavors from the Amazon, jambu, and other local ingredients, from the juices to the foods that you'll experience today and at lunch. So to Esther's team, she's been running so many activities and events all across the city. Esther, let's hear it for your team. And Elcio, thank you. Okay, I think I'm going to hand over just one last point about the Dream New Dreams. That theme came from a conversation we had with Belém youth last December, and they were really adamant about how important it was to the people of Belém that this conference actually happened in the north of Brazil at the edge of the Amazon. And I think it really gave us the inspiration for what is the relationship between nature and technology look like in a symbiotic future. They said to us, Ursula Vidal, who's the culture minister of the state of Pará, said, we have to think about the urban Amazon. There are 10 million people who live in the Amazon and 2 to 3 million people who live just in this area of Belém. So what does the urban Amazon look like, and what can that mean? You'll see during the course of the day, we've been working on, like, what would the future hub look like in a biophilic environment where you have nature symbiotically growing with humanity. And that's really the vision that we want to leave you with today. And it's going to require data, and it's going to require new forms of transparency. So I'm going to let you get into it.
Awesome. Thank you, Stan. So before we hop into the first panel, I know we're running a little bit behind, which for COP has been a theme, but we'll try to keep mostly on schedule today. I want to share a little bit about Hedera, for those who don't know us. I work for the Hedera Foundation, but Hedera is a public network, and the Hedera Foundation is here to help grow the sustainability economy on Hedera, but also to grow the overall Hedera economy. Hedera itself is a public network. It's a governed consortium of companies across industries and geographies. They run this network that, if you're not familiar with blockchains, it's a public network. Think about it like a Visa network, where there's up to 39 governors started, just like the bank started Visa. We started Hedera in the same way. Those companies that signed on, they run the computers of the network, but instead of payments or keeping a balance, we can log things, log data, carbon credit methodologies, ESG focused data, keep balances of credits tied to those methodologies and data, enable markets, build financial instruments, integrate with payment systems so that we can better trace financial tools from the instrument to the project into the same accounts that are testing data. But we can do a lot more. And today we're talking about the different innovations that can blend what's happening in different parts of the world to local communities. And you're going to hear a lot about that. We have a few different themes that we're going to talk about where technology can be an enabler. We're going to start off with a panel moderated by Hope Raymond from Quantum Commodities, where she's going to interview a series of panelists who are both based in Brazil but throughout the world. Marcelo Furtado from Itaúsa, a holding company that owns Itaú here in Brazil, and also a veteran both in biodiversity. You have Bruce Keith, who started the Carbon Opportunities Fund. The Carbon Opportunities Fund was the first fund from the World Bank and the IFC focused on blockchain-based investments to use technology as an innovator. He's now with Regia Capital, largest ESG investment platform here in Brazil, but also in the global south. Those folks are going to help guide us in the conversation on carbon markets. They're going to speak with folks who are blockchain innovators like Evercity and Alexei Shadrin, who put the first carbon credit on the blockchain back in 2017. We have different parties like StoneX who are actively trading these credits in the market and working with global commodities. That's going to lead into a carbon markets panel where we're going to talk about what are some of the problems that we can solve with technology. What are the opportunities? And we'll get into the panelists, and I won't list everyone by name, but I encourage you to find these folks after they speak or ask questions. How does this impact you? We're going to do something a little different than we've done in the past years. We're going to ask you to go find Stan to also do that for an interview so we can come look back next COP. We can share on social media some of the conversations for here today to the folks who we want to see what we're talking about and how it can help their dreams or help them think of some of their new dreams where this technology can play. We're going to then have lunch and come back and have an Article 6 focus panel on countries and project developers, followed by an ESG reporting and disclosure panel. And then towards the afternoon, we're going to do a little bit of a social experiment where we're going to have everyone talk about what they're working on, introduce themselves, and find collaborations. And then we'll wrap up with a happy hour for the end of the day. This event, this Regenerative Finance Forum, is for you. It's to build a community, to build an ecosystem so that when we come back next COP, we can have a conversation about technology and innovation and what you've done in the past year and what you look to do in the next with these tools. Hedera in itself, when we focus on sustainability, our mission is to bring the balance sheet of the planet to the public ledger. We have goals about how we make that possible, making finance auditable, focusing on financial integrity, data integrity. We have open source tools like the Hedera Guardian, which you'll hear about today, that have built the world's largest methodology library. It's used by carbon market standards like Vero. We have funding opportunities like our methodology bounty programs, where we have $5,000 prizes for folks who take the time to digitalize these tools. Please explore these opportunities. Come find me. Come find members of the ecosystem like Zeptagon, who will speak on their work in the National Carbon Registry, which is an open source tool started by the UNDP, but is integrated on Hedera. And all of these parties who are here to help you and help us get to some of the outcomes. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Hope to come introduce some of the panelists and ask the first panel to come up on stage, and we'll talk about how we can innovate in sustainable finance. Thanks, Hope.